On the Mythic Tarot card, you can see the three fate goddesses. They are children of the dark night, so there are no parents there. They're very primordial. They come before everything else. And these are, maybe you have heard about the story of how when a baby gets born, there are these three that come and determine the fate of the baby. And the first one is weaving the thread. That's clotho. From here we have clothes and clothing and weaving of the thread. Then we've got lettuces, the one that pulls the thread and determines the length of it, the length of the human life. And finally, we've got Atropos, the one that cuts the thread. Her will is irreversible. When she decides now is the moment when the thread needs to be cut, she does it. And they rule over the preconditioned fate, the one that we cannot control, the cycles of life, which are extremely individual. And now I was thinking, there are many things we can connect with this, but what can be better connected than the transiting cycles of the planets? Yes, we can argue the progressions as well, this very personal, individual plan of development that is reflected in the chart if we calculate the progressions, while the transits are more to do with everybody. But then they become personal when we put the different planets as they travel in their orbits over time, over the birth chart at any moment. And especially some of the cycles of some of the planets. The transits of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, really demonstrate that turn of fate dynamic when they, in those particular moments when they are in aspect to something important in the chart, to the sun, to the ascendant, to the angles of the chart, when they're activating something, they precipitate those events that turn our fate in our personal lives, for the good or for the bad. Inevitably something happens, inevitably something changes, but to what extent we are cooperating with it will determine actually the final outcome. This is not completely fated. There is a way of free will getting in the picture. And that's a challenge. That's just an example of a challenge of how transits, they announce the beginning of a transition period in one direction, depending on which houses, which planets are traveling over which houses and so on. This is the inner clock which is ticking. And when it comes to something, we need to deal with it, want it or not. And the Wheel of Fortune is the same idea of how every now and then we are kind of doomed to reverse sides, good periods, bad periods, challenging situations, followed by, moments of happiness. And what this card is teaching us, the big symbol, is that the only constant thing is change. That's, in two words, the symbol of that card. At the end of the day, whatever happens as external changing circumstances, as the transits, we still have our chart always the same. So the chart never changes. And the chart has a center. It's a circle, and everything in that circle revolves around that center, including the transiting planets are revolving around the center of our own personal chart. So in other words, we always keep our integrity, or we have the chance to keep our integrity and our wholeness, despite all those changes that the transits are bringing and the unexpected turns of events in life. And there is a creative way we can work with it by always going back to the chart and always reminding ourselves what our integration is all about, where our sun is actually going, where our whole chart is actually going. And this is the way to deal with the transits. In the card, that's symbolized by the hub of the wheel. Because the wheel turns and turns, you see these little figures of people that are on the wheel. And as the wheel turns, the one that's on the top then will be at the bottom. And we should never forget that nothing is there for forever. And then if we are in a good fortune at the moment, the fortune will inevitably turn. But anyway, these figures, they go up and down the wheel, but the wheel always stays fixed on the center. And that center to me is the birth chart.